One of the big news stories that's been going around the last couple of days has been the arrest of Jared Kushner, who is also the son-in-law of Donald Trump and affiliated with his presidency. Now, he has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI that he had actually communicated with Russians saying that he had not communicated with Russians when he actually had. Now, the very interesting thing here is that despite the fact that Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller says that Flynn spoke with Sergey Kislyak, which is the then Russian ambassador to the United States, twice in December when Trump was president-elect, what the mainstream media is not covering is exactly what this was about. Now, of course, liberal media outlets have completely gone out and decried this as proof of Trump collusion with Russia to steal the election. But you see, the thing is that when you actually read the indictment, what Flynn is being accused of is not discussing the election, but rather actually discussing the sanctions that were placed against the country. But he was not looking for a way to get some kind of influence to release them or any kind of underhanded dealing like that. He was actually asking Russia not to retaliate. While various talking heads have claimed that Flynn was working to undermine Obama's sanctions, the documents only show Flynn asked Russia to refrain from escalating the situation in response to sanctions that the United States had imposed on Russia. Shortly after, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that Moscow would not expel any U.S. diplomats, but rather invite them to the Kremlin for holiday celebrations. Now, this is quite different from interfering in the elections, in that this didn't have anything to do with the elections. Now, Flynn is guilty. He did lie to the FBI, and he's probably going to go to jail for it unless he has something on Trump that he could use as leverage to get off without punishment. But at this point, who knows if he really has that. Now, of course, he's being decried as guilty under the Logan Act of 1979, which calls for the prosecution of any person who directly or indirectly commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government or any officer or agent thereof in relation to any disputes or controversies within the United States or to defeat the measures of the United States. Now, what's interesting is that Flynn's guilty plea does not show any evidence that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia to influence the election. In fact, it had nothing to do with the election, despite how much the mainstream media has been actually repeating that statement over and over again. They might have colluded to undermine the foreign policy of the government. They might have colluded with another government to undermine the foreign policy of a sitting president. And that is something that you can accuse him of. That is something it appears that he has done. Of course, he hasn't been convicted, but he has only pled guilty to lying, not to having committed a criminal act with regards to Russia. But it does appear as though he may have done that. But it's very important to note the difference. And that's very important. Now, in December, a senior Israeli official told CNN that the country had reached out to the Trump campaign after it failed to persuade the Obama administration to veto something. That was to decry Israel for continuing to build these illegal settlements and pushing Palestinians off their land and the violence that goes with it. Essentially, all the Israeli settlements since a particular date have been illegal. And there was a vote to try to denounce Israel for having done this and vote to block them, which is laughable considering that they won't actually block them, but they'll just vote for them to stop. Essentially, what happened was Russia wanted to vote against Israel. The United States, as the perfectly good ally of Israel that it is, never wants to criticize them for anything. So Russia was unable to convince the Obama administration to have some sympathy for the lives of the Palestinian people, and then thus reached out to the Trump administration to see if they could convince someone there to vote along the lines that would try to get some influence to try to get that vote to vote against Israel. Well, see, that's the real interesting about this. The real issue here is that someone affiliated with Trump was kind of colluding with Russia but it was over Israel. And that's not the real story that's being told by the mainstream media. It's just, oh, Trump stole the election, here's proof. And then not really critically looking at it. Rachel Maddow being the absolute worst of it, an anchor for MSNBC. The official said that Israel implored the White House not to go ahead and told them if they did, they would have no choice but to reach out to President-elect Trump. So in other words, Russia didn't want Palestinians to die, and so there is some form of collusion there, a collusion to not have Palestinians die at the hands of the Israelis. So here's what Trump, Kushner, and Russia are actually guilty of. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.